Guys, it's times like this where you know Brett Veach's hard work is paying off. What do I mean by Brett Veach's hard work? Well, Brett Veach has a reputation in the NFL and, quite frankly, through college levels of having undrafted rookie free agents play on Super Bowl winning teams. So, when the draft is over and your name isn't called, you wait to see if the Chiefs do. Brett Veach has played UDFAs every season that he has been the general manager for the Kansas City Chiefs. And so he is able to sign the cream of the crop for who he wants when they come out. Now, I'm just going to say this off the top here in this video. Curtis Jacobs is an NFL player. Curtis Jacobs is an NFL linebacker. The worst case scenario, in my opinion, with Curtis Jacobs, the absolute floor for Curtis Jacobs is that he is a special teams contributor. I think Curtis Jacobs has the potential to be much more than that. And really, guys, when you look at this crop of UDFAs, Curtis Jacobs is just the beginning. Fabian Levette, in my opinion, is an NFL player. Miles Battle, an NFL player, even if he is not able to put together the cornerback side of things. He could be a special teams ace in the NFL for a decade. Curtis Jacobs, like I said, NFL player. Ryan Rackhow, the punter, who I don't think is going to have a future in Kansas City because of Matt Araiza. He's an NFL player. Ethan Driscoll, probably an NFL player. Maybe not this season, but give it a year. Carson Steele looks to me like an NFL player, not an every down back, but someone who sticks around the league for a few years. There are numerous players on this UDFA list that I think are going to be players in the NFL. And when you start to look at what Brett Veach has been able to do, so we know that Brett Veach has problems with wide receivers, and Brett Veach has problems with left tackles. Considering that Brett Veach picks no earlier than 28th in the NFL draft, yeah, wide receiver and left tackle are going to give you some problems. But what position is Brett Veach best known for? Is it cornerback? Maybe. He's drafted a lot of good ones. Is it safety? He's put some pretty good ones on the field at the NFL level. But maybe, guys, maybe it's linebacker. He was able to sign a free agent last season for $1 million that came in and was one of the best linebackers on the team. But he's also drafted Willie Gay, starting NFL linebacker. Nick Bolton, starting NFL linebacker. Leo Chanel, who appears to me to be a starting NFL linebacker. And that's not it. Through the ranks of the undrafted rookie free agents, Brett Veach has now added Curtis Jacobs, Darius Harris, Jack Cochran, Cam Jones, and Cole Christensen. Now, nefarious Darius Harris is the only one who has actually started games in the NFL, but I believe Jack Cochran can play NFL football. I believe Jack Cochran can start at the NFL level, and Cam Jones was maybe a higher ceiling player than Curtis Jacobs. I think the floor is lower on Cam Jones, but Curtis Jacobs is going to be an NFL player. So this video is in a playlist on the channel for the 2024 NFL draft picks that is now, I believe, 14 videos long. So if you are interested in any of that, be sure to check out that playlist. But also, this video will have 3 separate sections: a who section, where we talk about who it is that Curtis Jacobs is; a strengths and weaknesses section, talking about what he is good at and what he is bad at; and an analysis portion of this video where I go into what I think Curtis Jacobs will bring to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, let's get around to answering the question, who is Curtis Jacobs? Well, here's where I want to start with this. Here's the interesting thing about Curtis Jacobs and getting Curtis Jacobs as a UDFA. that left side of the screen there, that's all measurables. That's all his height, his weight, his testing numbers, etc. The right side of the screen, of course, is the stats. That's how I've done every one of these videos to this point. Normally, when you're talking about a first rounder or a second rounder, they have both sides of the screen with something interesting to point to. And as you get further through the draft, a couple things disappear from the left-hand side. Maybe the guy's not fast, but he is very strong and he is very tall. Maybe he doesn't have all of the production, but he has some tackles. He's got a couple interceptions, whatever it is for the position the player in question plays. And then as you get to the ranks of the UDFA, normally these guys have one or the other. He was a really good football player, but you couldn't tell that in the Underwear Olympics. Or he was an Underwear Olympics warrior, but he did pretty much nothing on Saturdays. Guys, Curtis Jacobs is good to go from both sides of the screen. He's 6'1", which is 35th percentile, 241 pounds, which is 41st percentile, but he does look like he has the frame to get up to 245, 247, maybe 250. Somehow, he is 6'1", 241 pounds, but he looks like a safety. He has 10 1/4 inch hands, which is 79th percentile, 31.5-inch arms, which is 33rd percentile, and a 78-inch wingspan, which is 87th percentile, suggesting that he has shoulders that make it look like he's wearing shoulder pads, whether he's wearing shoulder pads or no shoulder pads, which is a great thing for a linebacker. Then you get down into his testing numbers. A 4.58 40-yard dash is 83rd percentile. And he's a guy who shows that speed on the field. His 10-yard dash of 1.59, or his 10-yard split, of 1.59 is 70th percentile. It's a pretty good number still. A 35-inch vertical is 61st percentile, which is not the most explosive number out there, but when you get down to the broad jump of 124 inches, all of a sudden that is 86th percentile. His 3-cone drill of 7.15 is 45th percentile, and his short shuttle of 4.4 flat was 26th percentile. He also did 18 reps of the bench press, which is not a great number, but a lot of guys opt out of the bench press these days. 18 reps was 20th percentile, which we will get into on the next slide here, does show up on film from time to time. That is his worst physical attribute. And I'm going to throw around the word athlete a lot in this video, but I'm just going to put these numbers out there because I don't want there to be any confusion as to what level of athlete Curtis Jacobs is. Curtis Jacobs is definitely the type of athlete that can make it in the NFL, but if you compare him to someone, for example, like Willie Gay had a 4.46 40-yard dash, a 1.55 10-yard split. He had a vertical leap of 39.5 inches. His broad jump was 136 inches, an entire foot better than Curtis Jacobs. Willie Gay had a 3-cone drill of 7.08 and a short shuttle of 4.30. Now, their cone drills, their shuttle times, were relatively close, but the athlete that is Willie Gay is really pretty superior to the athlete that is Curtis Jacobs. Though it also needs to be said that Curtis Jacobs has a much fuller right half of the screen than did Willie Gay. Now, on that right half of the screen, in 2021 as a sophomore, Curtis Jacobs had 61 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and an interception. In 2022, he had 52 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and an interception. In 2023, he had just 49 tackles, fell off there, but he had 9 tackles for loss. 20% of his tackles were tackles for loss, and he had 2.5 sacks. So what you're looking at on the screen, a guy who has all the measurables on the left half of the screen and all of the production on the right half of the screen, says that this is a football player. So what are his weaknesses? And guys, I have to preface this by saying, look, I am not a professional at this. I am not full-time at this. I'm just a guy doing his best. But when I looked at Curtis Jacobs, what I did was I tried to find some film, and you reference the sources that there are to reference. My strengths and weaknesses are almost the exact opposite of what was listed on NFL.com on the little sort of player scouting bio that they had. But I'm going to give them to you anyway. I had for one of his strengths his athleticism. Now, obviously, this is something that is probably going to go ahead and go without saying. That is pretty much consistent no matter where it is that you find a scouting report on Curtis Jacobs, and it shows on film. He's a guy who gets on the field and is able to move around very effectively. In addition to that, you can tell his intelligence on the field. He knows his assignments, and he knows what to do when his assignment has expired. For example, say he has the flats in coverage. The moment his area is vacated of players, he's looking for something else to do. He will charge upfield at the quarterback. He will drift into another zone. He is a busy player. That is one of the things that you want from your linebacking crew because of how much they affect both the running and the passing game. He seems to have a very strong internal checklist, knowing that on this type of play, this is what I have to watch out for, and if it isn't this, that is the other thing. So, for example, you can see him on the blitz realize that it's a run and then crash down the line. And oftentimes he even had the athleticism to end up making the tackle from behind on a running play during which he was a blitzer. And the number 3 thing that I have there is awareness. Because he is such a good athlete and he has the intelligence to be there wherever the play is being made, oftentimes he happens to be, quote-unquote, in the right place at the right time. And you can only do that if you are an incredible athlete and you have the intelligence to know where the play is going. So when there's a fumble, when there's a batted pass, when a running back cuts back against the grain, it is Curtis Jacobs oftentimes who is there. Now, over on the weaknesses, I thought I saw Curtis Jacobs as a guy who's going to get pushed around a little bit in the NFL. I think that he has the frame and athleticism to work on his size and his strength, and if he can push that weight up a few pounds, he's already a fairly decently weighted linebacker, if that is such a thing to say, but he seems to get lost in offensive linemen. If you watch him on his effective blitzes, he ends up getting something of a clean release around the tackle. So it's difficult to say that that's really going to work for him in the NFL, but when he blitzes up the gut, he's good at timing things and getting a free release there as well. But when offensive linemen really get their hands on him, he has a little bit of trouble disengaging from them. When I say he is inconsistent, what I mean by that is that he does not consistently show those tools that you know he does have. He does have that quickness. He does have good speed. He does not seem to always use all of his powers at full tilt. And this sort of goes the other way as well. So while he does not always use all of his strong suits to their full extent, Sometimes you will see him go on a blitz up the gut and absolutely stiff-arm somebody's offensive guard out of his way. He will use strength that it does not always look like he has. And it just sort of leaves you wondering, who is the real Curtis Jacobs? Is he the guy that can stiff-arm an offensive lineman, or is he the guy that has to try to run around everyone? And then the final thing here on weaknesses, maybe this is my weakness. I don't know what Curtis Jacobs' ceiling is. When you watch him play football, there are times where he looks like Willie Gay. There are times where he looks like nefarious Darius Harris. Willie Gay and Darius Harris are very different grades of linebacker. Darius Harris, during his time starting for the Kansas City Chiefs, was productive but limited. Making the tackle is a good thing, but making the tackle 3 yards downfield versus in the hole is a very different outcome on the football field. And when you try to get deeper into things, he does not have the elite measurables of Willie Gay. So what is going on here with Curtis Jacobs at writ large? Now, though he does not have the extreme measurables, the extreme testing numbers of Willie Gay, neither does he have the numbers of nefarious Darius Harris. Darius Harris's 40-yard dash was 4.70 compared to Jacobs' 4.58. His 10-yard split was 1.64 compared to Jacobs' 1.59. Darius Harris had a 31-inch vertical compared to the 35-inch vertical of Darius Harris. Darius Harris had a 10-foot 2-inch broad jump, which is 122 inches to Curtis Jacobs' 124-inch broad jump. Darius Harris had a 7.52 three-cone drill compared to the 7.15 of Curtis Jacobs. And finally, Darius Harris had a 4.50 short shuttle compared to the 4.4 flat of Curtis Jacobs. Roughly, when you translate that, Willie Gay makes Curtis Jacobs look like Curtis Jacobs makes Darius Harris look. They are roughly equidistant as far as the athlete is concerned. One massive advantage, however, that Darius Harris had over Curtis Jacobs is the fact that he had 34 1/8 inch arms compared to the 31.5 by Curtis Jacobs. So he had a lot more ability to keep people from really getting into his chest. Now, Curtis Jacobs is still 22 years old. He turned 22 years old on February 18th, so he is a young guy. He can learn a lot of things still at the NFL level. That is one of the things that Brett Veach seems to value in his draft picks, and now he's got a UDFA on that route as well. Now, as far as what this means for the roster, the Kansas City Chiefs may have already made up their mind, as Cole Christensen was not brought back, leaving the Kansas City Chiefs with Nick Bolton, Swayze Bozeman, another UDFA, Leo Chanel, Jack Cochran, Curtis Jacobs, Cam Jones, Drew Tranquil, and Luque Washington, another UDFA linebacker, at the position. And look, I'm as big a fan of Jack Cochran as probably anybody in the entire Chiefs kingdom. But if you start looking at the numbers and understanding that the Kansas City Chiefs are unlikely to carry 8 linebackers into the season, and you start to figure in that over 2 seasons, Jack Cochran has played just 180 defensive snaps, though he has contributed 598 snaps of special teams. I'm not going to say that this move was, that these 3 UDFA linebackers were brought in to get rid of Jack Cochran, but I will suggest that a lot of times these types of moves are made to tell a player to dance or turn the music off. It is possible that I have gotten lost in the sauce as far as what Jack Cochran's contract situation looks like, and I think things are always a little bit messy on that bottom area of the roster, but if I'm not mistaken, he is on the third year this season of a 3-year deal. And considering that the Chiefs were willing to let Willie Gay walk, I'm not sure that Jack Cochran has any special claim to being re-signed by the Kansas City Chiefs. So it may be that this season, with a couple spots on the active roster and a couple spots on the practice squad, Swayze Bozeman, Curtis Jacobs, Cam Jones, and Luquay Washington spend this season figuring out who are the next two. Remember, Darius Harris got extended playing time because of injuries on the roster. It is important to have people who are ready to go. And I say all of that with this in mind. This is the last season of Nick Bolton's rookie contract. Nick Bolton, by the way, 2-time Super Bowl champion, has started 37 games in the NFL, has played 41 games in the NFL, has made 352 tackles in the NFL, and is just 24 years old. But right now, I would suggest that what this season comes down to is between Cam Jones and Curtis Jacobs, who is it that makes the active roster, and who is it that spends a season on the practice squad. That's all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do on the channel, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button in order to stick around for more Kansas City Chiefs content. The Chiefs are the only thing I cover on this channel, and I hope to have you back for the next one.